Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Isabel Wong.
And I'm Edna Tse. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Government will retable motion in LegCo for cross-harbour tunnel toll adjustment plan next month.
Financial Secretary continues to defend decision not to hand out more sweeteners in his budget.
And Security Secretary repeats government's wish to make report to Beijing on ban of National Party public.
The government will retable a non-binding motion on adjusting cross-harbour tunnel tolls in the Legislative Council on March 27th.
Transport Secretary Frank Chan warned that if legislators did not support the proposal, the government would shelve it until 2023. Karen Young reports.
The government will try its luck again to get a non-binding motion on the adjustment of cross-harbour tunnel tolls passed in the Legislative Council on the 27th of March. It withdrew the motion in January after receiving strong opposition from lawmakers. They were against the toll hike for private cars using the cross-harbour tunnel and Eastern Harbour crossing, going up to $40 from $20 and $25 respectively. When the government retables the motion in LegCo, the toll adjustments will remain unchanged.
I have explained in every detail the purpose of the toll fare level and why we stick to that level, because of the ultimate objective to ensure smoother, more efficient and greener transport in Hong Kong.
To get legislators to support the motion, the government has tried to sweeten the deal. The extra income generated from the higher tolls will be used to improve road safety. The government also vowed to conduct a comprehensive review of tolls at all three cross-harbour tunnels before the franchise of the Western Harbour Crossing expires in 2023. But the revamped proposal has failed to impress lawmakers.
Of course, we realize that it's not an easy task, as you have just mentioned about the kind of response from our legislative friends. I wouldn't speculate what's going to happen in the days and months to come, right? But our focus as of now is to make our best endeavor to convince our legislators to give us the green signal to go ahead.
Chan warned that if the motion was voted down, the government would not put forward another plan until the Western Harbour Crossing franchise expired in 4 years. Karen Young, HKIBC.
Financial Secretary Paul Chan defended his decision not to hand out more sweeteners in his budget again, saying people should not overreact.
Chan also argued that the incentives for salaries tax was generous compared with previous years.
After revealing a less sweet budget on Wednesday, Financial Secretary Paul Chan took to the airwaves again this morning to sell his plan and take calls. He was bombarded by callers who were unhappy that he did not give out more sweetness to the community in his budget. Chan was accused of not doing enough to help the city amid growing pressure on the economy caused by the US-China trade war and other global uncertainties. But the finance minister brushed aside the criticisms, saying the government would intervene if needed.
Whenever necessary, we do not need to wait for the coming policy address or the next budget to announce additional measures during the year.
When asked why sweetness in this year's budget were less than last year's, Chan said he forecasted a deficit for next year. He added that if the government spent the entire surplus in the budget, the deficit could balloon to $20 billion.
But in the meantime, we do think that by returning about 73% of the current year surplus back to the citizen via different means is the appropriate way to do. If we exclude the housing reserve to be written back to the account, the coming year will be a deficit to the order of about $5 billion. In terms of the handouts this year, against a surplus of about $58 billion, we return about 73%. If as you suggest, huge, to return the whole surplus to the people, the next year's deficit would be in the order of close to 20 billion. Well, in some quarters of the community, they will argue that this may not be a very prudent way of handling our public finance, because it is not just next year, but going forward.
He denied the government was phasing out sweeteners over time.
We have to look at this with a historic perspective. Last year was an exceptional year against the backdrop of a surplus of over 140 billion. Of course, people had the expectation of a larger tax rebate. That's what we did. But if you roll back a few more years back, then you would see the current proposed 20,000, say for example, salaries tax rebate is quite generous.
Chan added the government was also happy to allocate more public resources to improve the quality of open spaces in Hong Kong if funds earmarked for harbourfront works were utilised well.
The government wants to release a report to the public that will be sent to Beijing on the banning of the National Party, Security Secretary John Lee reiterated today.
Lee also dismissed Taiwan's concerns over proposed amendments to the city's extradition laws that would allow suspects to be transferred to the island. Sarah Wong reports.
Earlier this week, Chief Executive Carrie Lam revealed that the central government had asked her to submit a report detailing the SAR's decision last year to ban the pro-independence National Party. The announcement sparked concerns of Beijing encroaching on Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy. But Lam insisted the exchange demonstrated close cooperation between the city and Beijing.